All right, welcome back. So, as a few of you guys may have watched before I did TI, I went through every single team attending this year's international, and I did a little bit of a review slash preview leading into TI, going over some stats from their past DPC year, what to look out for, what players I enjoyed watching, stuff like that. Again, I did one for every single team leading up to TI, and if you're familiar with that, you might be familiar with this layout I got going on here. With TI being over now, I thought it'd be kind of fun to go over and review every single team's tournament. Specifically, maybe some of the top teams. Not every single team played as many games as other ones, but I thought it'd be fun to kind of start going through some of the teams, and especially because it was kind of something that interested me. I really wanted to know like what were the X factors for some of the top performing teams of this year's international. So yeah, here we go. I'm starting off with our first place finisher of TI10, Team Spirit, the underdog of underdogs. They really came out of nowhere. From an outsider's perspective, they really came out of nowhere, but for someone that's been watching them for a while, you could kind of see the potential in them from the very beginning of the DPC year. They really had something special going, especially into season 2, where they almost overcame Virtus Pro in their season, and they did pretty okay for a team that was rather unknown when it came to performing on lands and majors and stuff. So it was really nice to see them come into their own and finally get this huge spotlight on them. I wasn't anticipating it would be a spotlight as big as getting first place, but I'm sure they're not complaining about that. So yeah, starting off, I thought we'd go over some of the results. I also kind of color-coded it a little bit just to kind of show, just to help visualize their group stage performance. So they started off their group stage, their first day playing against PSGLGD. Every single team on written in green here was an upper bracket finisher, written in orange was a lower bracket finisher, and written in red was eliminated. And as you can see, the only teams that they lost to were teams that actually finished in the upper bracket. So they were winning all the series that they needed to win, and they only lost to the best teams of the group stage. So yeah, they started off with a rough start, PSG LGD and Team Secret. That was probably one of the roughest schedules. It's why I wasn't super worried about them when they went 0-4 after day 1. If you go back and watch my review, I had mentioned that this was probably their hardest day coming up in the group stage, and so getting a single win would have been kind of surprising, but they come away going 0-4. The next day, they do secure themselves a win against Elephant, which was a good series for them, but they lose to Vici Gaming in the process, so they're already 2-6 at this point. And sure, they've lost to some really good teams, but they're kind of on the brink of being eliminated, if not making lower bracket. But they turn things around. They play against Quincy Crew, Fnatic, Beast Coast, and SG Esports, and they do not drop a single game throughout that entire run. They are heading into the main stage from the upper bracket on an 8-game winning streak. However, because they finished 4th place in the group, they got chosen by Invictus Gaming, who got finished in 1st place in the opposite group, to play against them in the upper bracket. And even though they took a game off of Invictus Gaming in pretty dramatic fashion, Invictus Gaming just got the better of them in the remaining games of the series and knocked them down to the lower bracket. However, as we learned, they were down but not out. These guys fought until the end. They first played against Fnatic, who was just coming off of a win against Team Undying, and they beat them pretty handily. Notably, they had beat them in the group stage as well. However, one of the games was actually very, very much Fnatic favored, and they just kind of threw it in the end. That was a real pattern with Fnatic throughout this year's international. They would just take games, but then they just weren't quite able to close it out, and they would slip out of their hands, and that's what happened in the group stage. That did not happen on the main stage. This was a very clean win from Team Spirit. However, I can't say the same about their next win, which was against OG. In game 1, they were kind of losing really hard. Sumail's Tiny was carrying really hard, but it was Collapse's Magnus that skewered them into the fountain that secured them that win in game 1, which then would help them win the series in total 2-0, knocking out the 2-time defending champions, OG. That was a really, really good series, and I think this was really the catalyst that just blasted Spirit forward. Knocking out the 2-time TI champion is no easy feat, and you could really see it as they headed into their next opponent, probably their toughest opponent for themselves to this point in the tournament. This is excluding anyone that would come after this, because Team Virtus Pro is a team that just reliably and constantly was beating Team Spirit. It didn't seem to matter which rosters were heading against each other. It didn't seem to matter when it was happening. But Virtus Pro, throughout their history, had gone 29-1 against Team Spirit. And I think that only win from Team Spirit was in 2015. Completely different rosters, like I had mentioned. And they overcome it in a dramatic 3-game series, a fantastic series. All of the Team Spirit players really come together, and this was, again, I think, another turning point moment, just like in the OG series, that just really cemented Team Spirit to be this underdog team that was not going to be stopped. Next up, they got their rematch against Invictus Gaming, and to this point, Invictus Gaming had been the team that knocked them out. They had also been knocked down to the lower bracket themselves, obviously, because they rematched, and Team Spirit had just shown just how much they've grown in just the few days that had passed since them being knocked down the lower bracket, as they knocked them out in 2 clean games. Team Spirit was on a little bit of a run, but now they run into the Goliaths of TI to this point. Of course, these two teams were projected to meet in the grand finals, and one of them was supposed to win this entire tournament. And if you'll notice, they played against Team Spirit and Team PSGLGD on the very first day of group stage and lost 2-0 to both of them. And now they're meeting up against both of them on the final day of the main event. They've dropped game 1 to Team Secret in a very, very Team Secret manner. It was a super clean game from them. Nisha's Void Spirit, like I had mentioned in my review of that day, was fantastic. I was really, really worried for Team Spirit because I was really rooting for them at this point. But they just snapped back with a fantastic remaining 2 games, and they actually knock out Team Secret, and now they're headed to the grand finals. And it's just been the same thing being said about them over and over. It's like, yeah, they're good, they're underdogs, it's fantastic, but they're going to lose to Team Secret, but they're going to lose to OG, but they're going to lose to PSGLGD, and they just didn't. They went up 2-0 in the grand finals very, very convincingly. Game 2, notably, they were losing quite hard. They were playing against a PSGLGD team that had drafted a very objective, push-heavy lineup with the Nature's Prophet and the Leshrac IO, and they managed to come back in that game, get out of that chokehold, and come back and win it. It was a fantastic game that, even though they dropped the next 2 games for PSGLGD to tie the series at 2, they had a fantastic game 5. Now, whether or not that was mainly just them being a very coordinated and confident team, or whether it was PSGLGD crumbling under the pressure of an entire region, if not the entire world, on their shoulders, because keep in mind, PSGLGD was a team that not only was China relying on, but pretty much everyone around the world was projecting them to win this year's international. You can't even imagine the amount of pressure on their shoulders there. But regardless, they pull through with a Game 5 win in dramatic fashion, a fantastic ending to the TI10 tournament, and Team Spirit wins it all 3-2 in the grand finals. They almost played the maximum amount of games that a team can play. The longest possible run you can do is starting in the upper bracket and then going on a lower bracket run to the grand finals. The only series that they played that didn't go to 3 games were Fnatic OG in the second meeting against Invictus. If those had gone to 3 games, they would have played the maximum amount of games possible, which is 39 throughout the entire tournament. They finished with 36 games, which is ridiculous for a week and a half. And yeah, so with that being said, let's jump now into some of their stats. Starting off with their side and pick order win rate, again, on 36 games. They had 24 wins and 12 losses for a 67% win rate. On Radiant, they went 14-6. They were very, very happy to be on Radiant. And it's not like their win rate was all that bad on Dire either. They just had a particularly good win rate on Radiant, going 14-6, which is 16% higher than the average, than the tournament average for that. Because of course, Radiant has had an advantage for quite a while now. Usually, Radiant has a higher win rate than Dire these days, just because of the way that the Roshan pit is positioned and the way that the map works. I won't get into the whole dead lane theory and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they had a 63% win rate on Dire, which was also 17% higher than the tournament average. For first pick, they actually struggled quite a bit. I wouldn't say that they struggled overly, but this was one of their lower win rates, only 53% going 8-7, which was 7% higher than the tournament average still. But their last pick win rate was 16-4. They played 20 games with last pick out of their 36, and they won 16 of them, which is ridiculous. These guys really knew how to utilize last pick. Sure, last pick was probably the better pick order for this year's international, just because of the changes that they made just a few months before TI. But regardless, they made sure to use it properly, and they went with an 80% win rate on second pick, which is 26% higher than the tournament average. Next up, for a combination of the two, Radiant and first pick, they had a 54% win rate, which was actually exactly in line with the tournament average, funnily enough. I think it was very, very slightly above, but... and for Radiant second pick, they went 7-0 when they were on Radiant second pick. And notably, they got Radiant second pick most in the last 2 days of the tournament. I think Invictus Gaming gave it to them in both of their games. I think Team Secret gave it to them twice in their series. And PSGLGD gave it to them twice as well in the grand final. So they got Radiant last pick quite a bit at the end of the tournament, and they did not lose a single game on it. For Dire first pick, they only played it twice. They go 1-1. Both of those games were in the group stage, so that was probably just still them experimenting with side and pick order and whatnot. They have a 50% win rate there, which is still 5% higher than the tournament average for Dire first pick. And Dire second pick, they go 9-5, 64% for an 18% increase from the tournament average. So Team Spirit in general, high win rates all around, and doing quite well in comparison to some other teams. In game ones, this is including group stage, they went 11-4 for a 73% win rate. They went 10-5 in game twos for a 67% win rate. So no real discrepancy for either game ones or twos. They were very solid in both of them. And in game threes, however, they went 2-2. However, they did not have that many game threes to play. On games that were less than 40 minutes, they were 14-7, and they were also, with the same ratio, 10-5 on games longer than 40 minutes for a 67% win rate for either of them. So it really did not seem to matter how long games were. These guys could play both of them. They could play fast games, they could play short games. Usually they prefer to have the more reliable late game lineup. I found that was when they were playing their best, when they had that, big ultimate spell, whether it be from the Bane or from the Winter's Curse or from the Tidehunter Ravage or a Mars ulti, something like that. Or they have their late scaling hard carry player like the Terrorblade or the Drow Ranger, something like that for Yatoro. So they were able to secure themselves a lot of games late while still having a lot of early pressure with those spells like I had mentioned. For heroes, they most played. They played a total of 60 different heroes across their 36 games, which is not super high, but also not as low as I was pretty much expecting. Team Spirit had really shown that they've grown their drafting pool quite a bit. A lot of people might be laughing at that, saying that, oh, Collapse just had 2 heroes banned against him the entire tournament. And sure, that may be true, but Collapse still played a decent amount of heroes, and he still played a lot of them quite well as well. We'll get into that. Their most played hero being Tidehunter, actually. With 10 games, they had the most games of Tidehunter from any team for the second most popular hero of the entire tournament. They had 10 out of the 63 total games. Snapfire, they had 8 out of the 61 most total games. They were the first place team out of that too. They were picking Snapfire the most. They also picked Io the most with 8 out of 60 picks. They picked Lion the second most, obviously only behind Invictus Gaming because Kaka is a big Lion player. They picked it for him pretty much every game except one, I think. So they picked him 8 times out of 48. Mars, they picked 8 times out of 41 total picks. They were tied with Invictus Gaming because JT is also a Mars player, so a lot of overlap with draft between Invictus Gaming and Team Spirit as well. And then they were also tied for first place in picks with Bane with 8 with Virtus Pro. So Bane coming into this tournament as one of the highest win rate heroes in the entire tournament, still not one of the most picked, and it was only really utilized. Well, half of the picks came just from the 2 teams from Eastern Europe. So it was kind of interesting that it's a strat that they came in with, and it looked really good near the back end of the tournament when teams were starting to pick it up. I'll end up getting into it now with their best heroes. They go 7-1 with Bane. And their only loss with the Bane was their very first game of the tournament against Team Secret. Every single other game after that, they had not lost with Bane. It was the same thing for Weaver, actually. They picked Weaver for Mira quite a bit, and the only game that they lost with it as a support was against Team Secret in that very first game. Their other best hero, Tidehunter, like I mentioned, 10 games, a 9-1 win rate, which was 38% higher than the average win rate. The Bane one was 10% higher than tournament average. And then Elder Titan, they go 5-0 on it. They would play that one both on Mira and Miposhka, and that was 40% higher than the tournament win rate, which was already 60% for Elder Titan, quite high. As for their worst heroes, they really didn't have any heroes with bad win rates. There was no hero that they had played more than once that they didn't have a win on, other than Spectre. Spectre was the only one that they went 0-2 on. He lost once on the group stage, once on the main stage with Spectre. So overall, just not doing super well. But again, there's no other heroes for them that they played badly. Sure, they had a small hero pool, but they usually won with those heroes. I can think of the only hero that they actually played quite a bit out of their most played hero that didn't have the best win rate was Snapfire, and it still went 4-4 for a 50% win rate. It wasn't terrible. Looking at their most banned now, they banned a total of 72 different heroes throughout this tournament. Their most of which being Monkey King with 29 bans on 36 games, and pretty much all of those came in the first phase. They just never let Monkey King through. They did not want to have anything to do with it. Even in the grand finals, it was always Monkey King ban. They let the Tiny through. They did not ever let the Monkey King through. Their next most banned being Tiny with 10 and Storm Spirit with 9. Their most banned against, they have 59 total heroes banned against them. Io being the most with 16, not quite half of their games, but almost. Invoker with 15 and Mars with 12. Finally, now looking at their stats from all their individual players on their roster, we have the 18-year-old Ukrainian Yatoro. His best hero and most played was Morphling, going 3-1. He had played a total of 21 different heroes, which you might think is a lot because, yeah, he did play a lot of different heroes. 11 of those heroes he only played once. So there were only 10 heroes where he actually played more than once. Of course, there was the whole stat where Up until the very last day of the main event, he had played like 12 or 13 different heroes on the main stage. So it was rather ridiculous. Toronto Tokyo, 24 years old from Russia. He played a total of 15 different heroes, his best hero being Ember Spirit, going 5-0. He did not drop a single one. He won TI with Ember Spirit, and he looked really good doing it. I was really, really happy when I saw that they drafted him Ember Spirit for the final game. I thought his games on Invoker and Templar Assassin were a little... I know he's a famous Invoker player, but I just really loved seeing him on the Spirit Heroes, where he was really able to just be as crazy of a player as he usually is. And so he wins TI with that. I forgot to go over the GPM and XPM stats. Yatoro actually finishes second place in the GPM averages in TI10, just behind Ame, with a 696 GPM, 688 XPM, and an average kill death ratio of 5.88, which was 8th overall. Toronto Tokyo with a 592 GPM, which was a 23rd overall, XPM of 667, which was 14th overall, and an average KD of 5.71, which was 9th overall, right behind Yatoro. For the rest of them, I didn't put them on the leaderboard just because they were so far down. It would have been a waste of time counting because it unfortunately was not numbered. But Collapse played a total of 10 different heroes. So in 36 games, he played only 10 different heroes. But there were quite a few of them that he did quite well. I think he was 3-0 on Night Stalker, and we never even really saw it on the main stage all that much. And I think there were 4 heroes there that he also... only played once, so his hero pool was quite small, but he was very good at playing those heroes. His best hero being Tide Hunter, like we mentioned earlier, going 9-1. He had an average GPM of 444, XPM of 537, and KDA of 3.8. We now have Mira, 21 years old, from Ukraine. He played a total of 11 different heroes, his best hero being Weaver. Again, the only loss on that Weaver being against Team Secret in the very beginning of the tournament. His average GPM, was 279, average XPM of 416, and an average KDA of 3.11. And finally, we have Mipushka, 23 years old, from Russia. He played a total of 13 different heroes, his best being Bane, which, just like the Weaver, only lost to Team Secret in the very first game of the tournament. He went 7-1 on the Bane. His average GPM was 270, XPM 380, and KDA 2.71. And finally, rounding things off with some team stats now. They had an average win rate of 66.7%, going 24-12. That was 3rd place, actually. They were behind, I believe it was Team Secret and, they were behind PSG LGD and Invictus Gaming only for win rate. So kind of weird that they had the 3rd place win rate when they actually won the whole tournament. For GPM, they had 2269 on average, which was 7th place, so not even close to the top there. They were barely in the top half. XPM as well, 2689, which was 9th, so just again barely in the top half. They had an average KDA of 3.88, which was 7th overall, and an average match duration of 37 minutes and 54 seconds. And yeah, this was Team Spirit, again, a team that came in through the regional qualifiers. I think this is definitely one of the shining highlights of why the new DPC system can be great, because Team Spirit is definitely a team that would not have gotten anywhere near this much recognition other than through this year's DPC system. So I'm super happy with the way that things turned out. Sure, there are a lot of hiccups with point distributions. There are teams that maybe attended TI that maybe should have missed. There are teams that missed that maybe should have attended. But Team Spirit is definitely a shining highlight there. And I was really happy to have witnessed their run. Again, they ended with 585 points. They needed 800 to qualify. They still didn't even make enough. They finished 14th overall, though, so they just barely missed the cut. But they finished 2nd place overall in their region. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know who you want to see next. I was thinking about going in order backwards now, so my next team would be PSG LGD. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below, as always. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow.